There are places on this planet that should not exist, and yet somehow they do. A wooden monastery glued to a cliff 1,000 feet above a canyon floor with nothing but faith and old timber holding it in place. A cluster of bright painted houses at the frozen far edge of Russia raised on stilts because their own warmth would melt the ground out from under them. One road that folds back on itself through 600 turns before it finally lets you breathe. These are impossible places, the most remote and extreme corners of Earth. And nearly all of them come with the same quiet warning from the people who know them best: do not visit. We are going to visit anyway. Together we will cross a grass bridge that is rewoven by hand every single year, then cut loose and dropped into the river below as an offering. We will stand where a salt crust heals its own cracks and where a thin film of water turns the whole ground into a mirror of the sky. Some of these are sacred sites of ancient pilgrimage. Others are forbidden zones where no one is coming to rescue you. If you have ever wanted to reach the edge of the world without leaving your chair, subscribe now and let this 4K travel documentary take you there. So, Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. Volcanic heat forces minerals up through the crust, and the surface answers in colors that, honestly, just feel wrong for Earth. Acid green pools, sulfur yellow crusts, and rust orange salt. Those emerald pools? Yeah, they're actually sulfuric acid. The yellow rind is raw sulfur, breathing out fumes that can scorch your lungs if you're not wearing a mask. National Geographic has called this the hottest inhabited place on Earth, where summer afternoons push past 120 degrees Fahrenheit and, well, there's just no shade to hide in. To reach it, you cross salt flats that run for hundreds of square miles, fighting heat and thirst the whole way. Most travelers only come with armed guards because the terrain is brutal, the border is tense, and no rescue is coming if something goes wrong. No travel insurance really covers a place like this. And still, caravans of salt miners walk out onto that furnace floor the way their families have for centuries, cutting blocks of salt by hand under a sun that seems to want them gone. Karhan Salt Lake spreads across the Qaidam Basin in northwestern China. It's a white ocean, so still it barely seems to belong to this world. It covers more than 2,000 square miles, about 7 times the size of Singapore, a crystalline plain that runs flat to the horizon in every direction. The salt crust here grows up to 66 feet thick, hard enough that heavy trucks roll over it as if it were a paved highway. Locals speak of 60 billion tons of salt locked into this basin. There's enough raw mineral here to wall the planet clear around, and you know, when the shallow water on top goes calm, it turns the whole surface into a mirror, doubling the sky until you honestly lose track of which way is up. There's this one 20-mile road that runs straight across the lake, built entirely from compressed salt. And when cracks split it open, the salt just slowly crystallizes and seals them shut on its own. The desert quietly repairs its own road. Out there in all that white, with no sound and no edge in sight, you start to feel very small and, very temporary. Heat, hey, heat. The Husseini hanging bridge sways over a fast, freezing glacial river in the Gilgit-Baltistan region of Pakistan. And, you know, from a distance, it looks less like a bridge than a frayed rope thrown between 2 cliffs. It hangs about 100 feet above the water, the height of a 10-story building, with no solid deck underfoot and nothing at the sides to catch you. The planks are old and half-rotted, and the gaps between them open up to 16 inches wide enough to drop a boot, or, honestly, a whole leg straight through to the river. Every gust sets the rusted steel cables groaning, a sound that trails you the entire way across. Here's the strange part. While visitors inch forward, white-knuckled, gripping the cables and staring at their feet, local children trot across those same killer gaps without breaking stride. Sacks of cargo slung over their shoulders. For them, it is simply the way home. The river takes something most years. A stray goat, a load of supplies, sometimes worse. Everyone who crosses knows that and, well, crosses anyway. Deep in the rainforest of the Papua region of Indonesia, the Kororowe people build their homes up in the treetops far above the forest floor. Some sit dozens of feet into the canopy. The tallest are said to rise well over 100 feet, an entire household lifted into the green. There are no stairs. The only way up is a single notched pole leaning into open air, climbed by hand with no ropes and nothing to stop a fall. The house itself is lashed together from rattan vines and strips of bark, holding firm without one metal nail or modern tool. To cook up there without burning the whole place down, families pack a thick bed of clay onto the wooden floor and light their fires on top of it. Flames burning in mid-air above the trees. The living space can be as small as 220 square feet, yet it shelters several generations under one roof. Life here runs on knowledge passed down so long that honestly, no one recalls learning it. They simply grew up knowing how to live in the sky. Mount Etna towers over the island of Sicily in Italy, the tallest active volcano in Europe and one that never truly settles. Its exact height keeps shifting, nudged up and knocked back by one eruption after the next. From far off, the mountain looks like it is breathing, dark smoke drifting off the summit into the Mediterranean sky. More than 300 smaller vents pocket the slopes, which means an eruption can break out almost anywhere, not only at the peak. Etna has rumbled through hundreds of recorded eruptions, redrawing its own outline every time it stirs. Climb its flanks, and you meet a contrast that honestly just stops you cold. For a moment, you stand on the seam between deep winter and something much closer to a furnace. Nazara sits on the central coast of Portugal, a quiet fishing town that turns for part of the year into the most violent stretch of water many surfers will ever see. The secret is hidden offshore. As that energy races up the canyon and slams into shallower water near shore, it stands up into walls of water that can rise past 80 feet. This is where the largest wave ever surfed was recorded. Stand on the headland by the old lighthouse and you feel the impact before you understand it. A low thud in your chest as the whole cliff seems to shudder. Places like this are exactly why people build a bucket list in the first place. The raw edge of the world you have to see at least once. If you want more of these extreme corners of Earth, take a second to subscribe and let's keep going. Abuna Yamatagu is a church carved into the top of a sheer rock spire in northern Ethiopia, and simply reaching its door is an act of nerve. Pilgrims climb the bare rock face by hand, easing along narrow ledges with a long drop opening beneath their heels, the way worshippers have done here for generations. This is an ancient pilgrimage in the fullest sense, a sacred site where faith and sheer physical courage become the same thing. The worship space itself was cut straight into the sandstone, said to be some 15 centuries ago, hollowed out by hand into the heart of the stone. Inside that cool, narrow chamber, a system of old fresco still glows on the walls, their colors preserved for well over 1,000 years by the dry air and near total isolation. People still make this climb to pray, trusting their grip on warm rock over a void to reach one of the most remote places of worship on Earth. The Hunza Valley lies deep in the Gilgit-Baltistan region of Pakistan. It's a green sliver of life wedged where three of the planet's greatest mountain ranges collide. Guarding it is Rakaposhi, a peak so vast it fills the head of the valley and honestly turns the settlements below into tiny specks. Life here is carved into near vertical ground. And there is one more thing people always mention about Hunza. An unusual number of residents live past 100. A longevity often tied to the simple diet, the clean water, and a life spent moving through this thin mountain air. In the coastal waters of northern Norway, Saltstraumen turns a quietly looking channel into one of the strongest tidal currents on Earth. Every 6 hours the tide reverses, and about 14 billion cubic feet of seawater force themselves through a narrow gap between the mountains. All that water squeezed through such a tight throat tears itself into whirlpools up to 33 feet across, funnels deep and strong enough to swallow a bus and drag it spinning into the dark. The current can run near 25 miles an hour until the surface becomes a kind of sideways waterfall, moving with more raw force than famous Niagara on the rock walls below. Bright red coral clings on, and the fish that live here have grown unusually powerful, their bodies built just to hold position against a sea that wants to sweep them away. Then, for a few still minutes between tides, the whole channel goes glassy and calm before the fury winds itself up all over again. Out in the middle of Turkmenistan's Karakum Desert, the Darvaza gas crater opens in the sand like a wound that just refuses to close. It all began back in 1971, when a Soviet drilling rig punched into a hidden gas pocket and, well, the ground gave way. Engineers set the escaping methane alight, expecting it to burn off in just a few days. Instead, it burned for half a century. In the footage, the world came to know the pit glows about 226 feet across and 98 feet deep. Its floor is a churning bed of fire, fed by methane rising from below. There's no barrier at the rim, nothing between your boots and the drop into that furnace. Then there's what scientists pulled out of it. When an explorer descended to the crater floor and brought back samples, researchers found tough microbes, bacteria that seem to survive by feeding on the very gas that fuels the flames. Life had moved into the mouth of the fire and somehow made itself at home. In recent years, the flames have been fading as the gas is drawn off. So, honestly, the inferno you see in most footage is already becoming a memory. Down. Hey, out on Lake Titicaca, along the border between Peru and Bolivia, the Uros people live on islands they build themselves out of totora reeds. There is no natural land underfoot here. Visitors step onto soft, springy layers of reed that shift a little.